Oh, 11.23 has been a crazy patch so far. I've seen clips of Nocturnes getting 2 ultimates off during the same fight. I've seen clips of Fed Rengars literally healing Soraka's because they have Crown of the Shattered Queen. And I've also seen clips of Trinamirs with what looks like 400% attack speed and their Berserker's Grease Spike with the new lethal tempo. So in today's video, I'm going to catch my breath first of all, and I myself, Code Cheese, not Cheese or Jizz, even though you can call me both of those things, I'm going to reveal the new and updated 11.23 tier list. So this is taking into account the actual impact all of the changes have had, and the tiers are as follows. We have the busted tier, so in other words the most broken. Then we have the typical S tier followed by the low-key broken tier. Now these are champions who are flying under the radar and should be played 10 times more than what they actually are. Then we have your standard A to C tiers, and then last but certainly not least, the trash tier. And in this video, also known as pro guides. Oh, the toxicity, I love it. But seriously guys, all of this pre-season content and the 24/7 updates, you do not want to miss them, which means if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. Now we're going to start with the top lane tier list, and you can see that there has been a big trend from the 11.23 impact, and this impact has just meant that lots of tank champions have become tankier and just better on the wrist. So look at the busted tier. There are 2 tanks here, Dr. Mundo and now Shen, and the reason for these 2 tanks being right at the top of the pile is simply because of the buff mythics and how well they actually use them. So Frostfire Gauntlet for Mundo and then Sunfire Aegis for Shen, and for Shen in particular, what's happened this patch is that lethal tempo has gotten really good for melee champions, and some melee champions like Trundle, who's in the busted tier list, when they get that attack speed and the extra range, well think about Shen. He's one of the best cucks to auto-attacking champions because of his W. So when these auto-attack champions get buffed, Shen indirectly gets buffed, and because Sunfire Aegis is making him even tankier these days, he's just a straight out beast in the top lane. Just like Camille, who again is residing in the busted tier. With Divine Sundra, there is not a champion who hits harder in the mid to late game. Now other champions in the S tier, you can see Yorick is here. This is because he does amazingly well into tank champions. It's a free lane for him, so he can split push and just win games on his own. And Lowy the same thing, and you also have Lilia here as well. And the reason Lilia is in the S tier might seem a bit weird, but she actually has one of the best win rates in the top lane. And just like Shen, she's amazing into auto attack champions because you can rush Frozen Heart, which is giving you mana. It's also giving you a lot of armor and ability haste as well. But the passive, which is reducing that champion's auto attack speed, this is huge at the moment because lots of top laners you're going to go against will have lethal tempo as their keystone, and it's a great way to negate their threat. Now as far as the low-key broken tier goes, you can see Akshan is in here, and he's doing extremely well in the top lane because, well, he's a ranged champion, but he also has the itemization to beat anyone he goes against. So if you're going the Collector to beat up squishy enemies, if you're going Lord Dominic's Regards to shred tanks, and we have Skarner here as well, which looks really weird. Why on earth is Skarner in the top lane? Well, this is all because of the new tier tank item, Winter's Approach, and Skarner players in the top lane are actually rushing this as their first item, and they're also starting their games with a tier. Then when they get to their Divine Sundra Spike, because you have AP scalings in your kit and you're going to trigger that shield from Fimbulwinter an awful lot, it makes Skarner really hard to play against in the top lane and just out-duel. Now other champions who deserve a mention, Viego is actually kind of back, because champions at the moment just have more HP in their kit, from the HP buffs to lots of items. Because Viego has a lot of damage in his kit that benefits from the target having a lot of HP, this just makes him more valuable. And we also have to think about Nico and Victor with the rune First Strike. And for Victor, I said in our 15 highest win rates video, Victor with First Strike in the top lane legit has the best win rate in the entire game, because you're always going to proc that first initial damage because of your death rate. And this just means free gold, so you can scale a lot harder than anyone else in the top lane. And this is just more viable in the top lane because most champions are going to be short range, so actually hitting them is going to be very easy. Now the other honorable mentions, we have Yone, who's moved from C tier to A tier. The reason for this is because of the new lethal tempo, and unlike Yasuo, who's in the C tier at the moment, think about Yone's W. It's just more useful than a wind wall in the top lane. It gives you a shield and deals damage, and the cooldown is also reduced by lethal tempo. So the more stacks you get, the lower your cooldown is going to be for your W and your Q. For Yasuo, it's just his Q. And we should also mention Gangplank, who hasn't really improved that much since last patch. Even though First Strike sounds like a really good keystone for him, and it kind of is, it's just GP is nowhere near as strong as the other champions on this list. Same goes for Gwen with lethal tempo. Just like GP, she has one of the lowest win rates, and speaking of low win rates in the top lane, any of these champions in the Pro Guards tier, please do not lock them in. Even Ryze with all the new items that look so good for him, it's just top lane. It's a long ass lane, and if you get caught out once, you're going to die. You're very gankable, you're very killable, and you're not going to scale like you want to. So that was the updated top lane tier list. Now let's head to the mid lane and start with the busted champions. So you can see Kayle with the new lethal tempo. Extremely hard to beat in the mid lane. I mean, even if you do beat her, the point is she scales like an absolute freak. With the new lethal tempo, the range she gets, it's just way too oppressive, and because most games in lower elos at least are going to last until the 30-minute mark, this is when Kayle will just unleash on everyone else. Now we also have Lux in here who is loving the new mythic Crown of the Shattered Queen, which is amazing into assassins, and and she's also benefiting from the Void Staff Magic Pen buff, and sometimes Shadow Flame in the right game, so if the enemy team has lots of innate shielding, you are going to froth this, and just the fact that Riot buffed Lux like 4 times towards the end of last season, these are still in the game, so she has to be in the busted tier list. Now, who else is here? Well, we have to mention Anivia, and for high elo Anivia mains, they're actually going Everfrost instead of Liandry's because Everfrost is 2800 gold, and it synergizes so well with your kit. So if you think of Anivia's slows and her stuns, with Everfrost, this guarantees your Flash Frost to land, and it's just a great way of peeling yourself as well. So if you do get jumped on by a Kha'Zix or a Yasuo or a Yone, etc., you have the Everfrost route to back yourself up. Also, the new Seras, which is giving you healing now, kind of like the old Roa used to, this is just really beneficial for Anivia players. And the 4th most broken champion in the mid lane, this is by far the best AD assassin, and this is Qiyana, who holds close to a 60% win rate in high elo. That's how busted she is in the right hands, and that's all thanks to the Prowler's Claw buff. So not only is it 100 gold cheaper, but the active is also dealing more damage, and we also have to mention here, guys, the new item Axiom Arc. So even though it's 3000 gold, and I'm sure you've seen so many clips of this by now, it's refunding 25% of your ultimate when an enemy champion dies within 3 seconds of you damaging them. So pretty much if you kill an enemy champion or get an assist, your ultimate's cooldown is going to get reduced, and if you get 4 kills and or assists, that ultimate cooldown is going to be back up. And for an AD assassin like Qiyana who has an AoE ultimate, this is actually very doable. Now, other champions worth mentioning, we have Cho'Gath in the mid lane. Who on earth puts Cho'Gath in the mid lane? Well, think about it. Everfrost is 400 gold cheaper, and because you have kill pressure, like if you just land 1 Q with Everfrost or maybe the new Horizon Focus, which is giving you HP ability haste, it makes you tanky but still gives you a really good amount of damage. And I also want to mention Lissandra here, because Lissandra has really been a counterpick to assassins, but to be honest, these days you can probably just pick her. Everfrost is a lot cheaper, so you're getting to this spike earlier, and because lots of close range champions are getting picked in the top lane now because tanks are buffed, lethal tempo is buffed, and even in the mid lane, these close short range champions who might not even be good. So if you think of Talon, Echo, Zed, Yone, Yasuo, I mean, some of these are good, but Lissandra is just the ultimate cuck. And the other champions in this S tier, you will notice that most of them can go Crown of the Shattered Queen as their mythic, which remember is reducing the enemy's damage to you for 1.5 seconds by 75%. So on range mages like Victor, Ari, Annie, and even Lux who's in the busted tier, this item is just too OP at the moment, and this is why these champions are pretty high up on this tier list. Now, a couple of other special mentions for the mid lane, I want to mention Morgana, because lots of AP champions are getting picked now because of all the item buffs and item introductions. Morgana, because of her black shield, just has so much value. Now, you also have Seraphine in here because she outranged a lot of the champions in the S and busted tier list, and then you have Talia with Luden's Tempest, the new Void Staff giving you more magic penetration. This is a super scary combination. And I also want to pay respect here to Wukong, who is an awesome AD champion to pick, so if your team needs some sort of attack damage, not only do you have great kill pressure during the entire laning phase, but you also have the items to back up your playstyle. And what I'm really talking about here is Divine Sundra, and then we have Zillion as well, with Everfrost, which is 400 gold cheaper. It just makes a champion like Zillion, who really relies on utility, even more utility based. Doesn't really make sense, but yeah, you can just use your utility more often in the game. Now, other champions we have to talk about, Zed has gone from busted tier all the way down to A tier. Now, some of these champions, guys, we have to understand that some people are still experimenting with burst strike on champions, certain keystones, certain builds, so some of these are certainly subject to change. But to be honest, Zed has actually taken a really big hit since 1123 started, and that's all because of the Crown of the Shattered Queen item. And even though Duskblade and Prowler's Claw, they're 100 gold less expensive, even Eclipse, and the actives have been buffed, this doesn't mean anything if you're dealing 75% reduced damage. You are not going to kill them. And to be honest, I also think tanks having a bigger role in the top lane, you know, as Zed, you're probably not going to be able to one-shot them, so there are just less kill opportunities for you. And the last champion I want to point my finger at for the mid lane is Talon, who's gone from the top all the way down to C tier. And the simple reason for this is that even though Prowler's Claw, just like Zed, has been buffed, so you're dealing more damage with the active, and you're getting to this spike quicker, you just don't deal enough damage. If the enemy mid laner has barrier, you're not going to kill them. If the enemy mid laner then buys Crown of the Shattered Queen, you are going to be as useful as a wet paper bag. There is just no way in this meta at the moment with tanks, Crown of the Shattered Queen, just more cucks out there, that you are going to accumulate the kills, the gold you desperately need, because you are an assassin, a snowballing champion, to actually win games. Now let's talk about the AD carry tier list, and the 2 busted AD carries out of 1123. The most broken, these are Vayne and Jinx. And Vayne's win rate is above 53%. Surely not. Like with all these ranged champions being picked in the mid lane with Crown of the Shattered Queen like Lux, Vex, Annie, you know, for Vayne, it's pretty hard to actually do well against these champions. But most of these are skill shot champions. And if you think about around the map as well, in the top lane, even in the mid lane and in the jungle, champions are building more HP because their items have more HP. So if the enemy team locks in one of these really strong tanks in the top lane, it might be Shen, Mundo, Cho'Gath, you are going to shred them. And this also goes for Jinx, But what Jinx has that Vayne doesn't is the new lethal tempo rune, which makes you a really aggressive lane champion and lane bully. The extra range you get when you get to max stacks, you can actually use this, and once you get enough attack speed in your kit and you actually activate your passive during team fights, it's super easy to actually stay in contact with the enemy champions and use this range, and this is why Jinx is also one of the most broken. Now, if you look at the S tier, you will see that there are only 2 AD carries here, and that's just how this role is at the moment. Because mages are just better with all the new mage items in the bot lane, because lots of AD carries really aren't that strong, it's like they get a free lane. And because champions like Cassiopeia, Seraphine, Syndra, Vel'Koz, they scale so well. And not only that, but they also work really well with supports who build the new Evan Shroud mythic. So Leona, Rels who have CC. So if you think of a Cassiopeia, this enables her to land her Q and then her multiple twin fangs. This enables Syndra to land her CC, Vel'Koz, etc, etc. And we also have Yasuo at the end of this tier list with the new lethal tempo. It just makes him a very scary lane opponent, and the extra range really comes in handy against these AD carries in the bot lane. Now I want to talk about a couple of these low-key broken champions here. So the first of these is Sivir. You see guys, not enough people are actually playing First Strike Sivir. They're just playing lethal tempo or Dark Harvest, which is fine with the new Duskblade, which is buffed, that's great. But I'm telling you, First Strike, because your boomerang range, you are going to get the first hit on pretty much anyone else in the bot lane. And the same goes for Ezreal as well. With the First Strike Keystone, it's really useful for your Mystic Shot, but think about another ability you have, your Essence Flux. So when you land your W on the enemy champion and you auto attack them, or you just proc the extra damage, this damage is going to be extra because of First Strike. And I also really like it because First Strike's cooldown, which goes from 25 seconds to 15 seconds, it actually stays pretty parallel to your Arcane Shift's cooldown, which goes from 28 seconds to 16 seconds. So you can just play around your First Strike and Arcane Shift's cooldown to get free gold in the lane, and this has actually seen Ezreal's win rate, especially in higher reloads, go from like 47-48% to 51%. Now another big shift that has happened in the bot lane is to Xayah. Unfortunately this patch guys, Xayah is just not what she was, and this is all because Xayah is a great champion into short range champions. So if we think of Kai'Sa, if we think of Tristana, any AD carry who doesn't have the best range in the world, Xayah is an excellent AD carry to pick. But if we think about it, Vayne, even though she's short range, she has great mobility. Jinx has really good range. Kog'Maw has really good range. Ashe has really good range. These champions right at the top of the tier list, you can't really actually use your Blaze to maximum effect and the new lethality setup. Even though Eclipse is cheaper and your build is actually good, just because the meta is changing, Xayah's effectiveness on the Rift has changed as well. And this is why you can see in the C tier lots of short range champions, Samira, Tristana, Kai'Sa, and you also see lethal tempo Aphelios. Now I think this champion, played in the right hands, can actually be really good with this new keystone, but the point is guys, it's solo queue. Your support doesn't care about you, and because you have no peel as Aphelios unless you have your Gravitum, you are just a sitting duck. Now staying in the bot lane, let's reveal the 1123 support tier list. Now in the busted tier, think about that AD carry tier list. We have Vayne, we have Jinx right at the top, and you also have Ashe and Kog'Maw. These AD carries work so well with supports who can actually keep them alive, so supports who can peel them. So Sona with her ultimate, with her shields, with her movement speed, Soraka with her silences, with her heals, Lulu with her polymorph ultimate, shield, movement speed boost. And the reason Blitzcrank is in the busted tier is just because he's a great counter to these enchantresses. Land one hook on the enemy champion, it doesn't matter if Lulu is there to protect them, you will blow them up if your AD carry is close to you. Now in the S tier, this is pretty much every other enchantress who isn't Sona, Soraka, and Lulu, but you can also see Relin here and also Maokai. And these two are the best abusers of the new Evan Shroud mythic, which is going to allow off your CC, your teammate, your AD carry, and your teammates in those team fights to deal more damage to that champion you immobilize. Now as far as the low-key broken champions go, you can see Threshers here with Glacial Augment, which is going to proc off your Q, so as soon as you land your death sentence, enemy champions nearby, they're going to be slowed. And you also see Taric here as well, with the new Winter's Approach, so the tank tier item. Because beforehand, Taric would just build a tier and just leave it there. Now that you can upgrade it, and because you're going to get that extra shield when you stun the enemy champion, this is a really big helping hand. And because of the change in meta, guys, you can see that champions like Bard, because he gets beaten in lane badly by these enchantresses, has gone down from busted to A tier. And the same goes for Morgana, who's sitting in B tier, and even Pyke, who's sitting in C tier, having a really tough time of it. And last up, we have the jungle tier list. And just like the top lane, the jungle is changing to more of a tank-oriented jungle. So the buff Frostfire Gauntlet, the buff Sunfire Aegis, Turbo Chem Tank, this is why Rammus and Nunu are right at the top. And because you don't have to skirmish the enemy jungler as much around Scuttlecrabs, because they're giving you 80% reduced experience, so you're not running into bruisers like Trundle and Rek'Sai, who are also super busted. All you should be aiming for is to hit your level 3 and just gank. These tank jungles are very cost efficient in the sense that they don't need the most gold in a game to actually be useful. They're always going to have a positive impact for their team, and this is why you can see Zac and Sejuani, even Dr. Mundo in the S tier very close to Rammus and Nunu. And by the way, just with Trundle in the jungle, make sure you're running press the attack, not lethal tempo like you are in the top lane. Now apart from this, it's pretty standard, but one pick that might stand out to you is Mordekaiser and Loki Broken. And the reason Mordekaiser is low-key broken in the jungle is because tank junglers are just becoming more of a thing, so Mordekaiser can safely clear to level 3, and he can also make use of the new Demonic Embrace. So by going Riftmaker, which is giving you 300 HP, this is going to get pumped into the new Demonic Embrace Dark Pact passive, which is transferring the HP you have into AP. And if we look at the A tier, you can see Udyr is here with the new Turbo Chem Tank, a very solid pick. And I also want to draw your attention to Lilia in the jungle, who's in the B tier. So in the top lane, she's S tier because she can rush Frozen Heart and is such a good champion into those auto attackers. But in the jungle, even though she's still fine, just is not as powerful. And then in the same B tier list, you can see Echo and Evelynn because the new AP items, Alternator in particular, isn't giving you the AP you once had. These two champions who rely on that raw stat, they're nowhere near as scary as they once were. And I also want to mention in the Pro Guides tier, we have Zed, Kiana, and Rengar, 3 AD assassins who are just hating life at the moment, and that is with buffs to their mythic items. So if you go Duskblade, Prowler's Claw, Eclipse, because these champions have pretty high cooldowns and tankier junglers like Rammus, Nunu, you can't kill them with just one set of your spells. So it's a lot harder to pick up kills, and because lots of mages these days are running Crown of the Shattered Queen, it's very hard just to get one kill, let alone snowball, which is what I was talking about for Talon in the mid lane. So those are the updated tier lists for 11.23. If you did enjoy the video, let us know by leaving a like down below. And also on your way out, guys, please make sure to check out the GameLeap website. We are still uploading legit up to like 20 videos a week for our subscribers. So to get exclusive access to the champion courses, guides, high elo VOD analyses that we upload so frequently, make sure you sign up. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Cheers, Coach Cheeks, the Cheese. Bye.